Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Laura. I know you were expecting Reverend Charles, but there was some business he had to take care of, so I get to step in, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to be getting to know our new Reverend Brad Wentker. We used to see Brad around. He was always doing the junior church. Brad, make sure you unmute yourself, sweetie. All right. So this is an exciting time. It's exciting for me to be here to get to participate in this. And Brad, we kind of knew each other somewhat before you came to Palm Desert, right?
Yeah. When I was working at home office and you were doing be on the leadership council for our movement, and it was great to see your smiling face whenever you visit.
You would come here and visit. You'd always come up to me when you were visiting your parents here in Desert, right? And
I always want to make sure it included a Sunday. Pardon?
I said, and that's kind of what got you here to our center, right?
Yeah, my parents. Yeah, I came to take care of them. So we can get into that whenever you want, but.
All right. So how does it feel to have an REV in front of your name, Brad?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's great. It's been in my mind for a long time of what that would look like and what that would feel like. And I'm thankful I've been doing things, but just didn't have the Rev in front of my name along that line. So that's great. I'm really thankful for all the opportunities we get to do here at Palm Desert Church. So it's very cool.
Well, we feel so blessed too, Brad, to have you here, to be part of our spiritual family. And Brad is an amazing prayer. He's been we had a practitioner meeting, and Reverend Charles asked for prayer, and Brad's been sending out some amazing prayers every day to just remind us and to get us centered in that. So, Brad, let's just jump in and find out some stuff about you. So give us some fun facts about who you are.
Fun facts about who I am?
Or just fun facts about you.
Fun facts? Well, all of us had a little questionnaire we kind of filled out. So one thing that came to mind was I like loud socks. And yep, just want to make sure that I put my special spiritual ones on one pair of socks. They have aliens, tacos, and avocados all on one pair of socks.
Oh, wow.
And it's just hilarious. So, yeah.
So is that your favorite one? Your favorite crazy sock, do you think?
My favorite sock, maybe not my unique fun thing about me. In my early 20s, I was in a choir and we got to sing at Carnegie Hall. That was kind of a cool fact. It was my first trip to New York, and there was about 80 of us, and we did a concert there at Carnegie Hall, and that was really a blast to do. So.
Oh, yeah. And how old did you say you were when you did that?
Yeah, early 20s. I think maybe like 21 or 22. So.
And had that been your first visit to New York too?
Yes. That was just, I love that city. It's just, whenever I go, even the one time I went with my family, with my wife at the time, and my son who was only 5, I made sure at least every time I visit, one night I don't go to bed. Seriously.
Really?
Seriously. Oh, yeah.
And what are you doing all night long? What do you do?
Well, let's see, the first couple of trips I can't tell you about, but the last trip.
We might have to revoke your license, what?
Yeah, the last trip was over New Year's Eve. And we were staying in a condo south of Times Square that you see on TV. And somehow I took a taxi to the north side of Times Square. So I walked that whole distance from way up there down to the West Village, East Village. And so I didn't get home till like 4 or 5. Luckily we had cell phones then, so that was a big help. So.
I always thought it'd be kind of cool to be down there at Times Square with watching the ball drop and stuff. But I always wondered about going to the restroom.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When you go to places that you've seen on TV or in history books, and it's like so different than what you realize it was. So I'm a number of blocks, at least 2, if not 3 blocks away from the whole central area where they're doing the celebration. And it's around, I don't know, maybe 11 o'clock or 10:30. and I can't go through that way. I can't get closer. The whole thing was closed off. And I talked to a couple of police officers, and they said, no, we closed it off like hours ago. And then we block off all the streets within multiple blocks radius, so that you can't get closer. And the crowds that are down there, they're stuck down there. I thought that was kind of fascinating. So,
Oh my God.
yeah.
All right. What are some of your favorite childhood memories?
You know, my coolest one was just fishing with my grandpa. I had one of those grandpas that was happy you could call him an old fart. And he introduced me to fishing and Colt 45 beer. And more than once we would go to the store and for the purpose of getting worms, because we use worms to fish, because we're gonna and a junky, gross Vienna sausages in a can and a bag of Fritos and Colt 45 beer. And one time we forgot the worms. We thought it was really hilarious when we got to the fishing spot, and we didn't fish with lures, even though we had some, and we didn't have any bait. We just thought it was a great memory for us to have of, we're going fishing and we got everything else, but no bait.
Sure, that was just an excuse to hang out, right? It didn't matter if you were
Totally.
fishing or not.
Yeah.
And you didn't put any little Vienna sausages on the hooks and try that?
You know, I bet we did. Because Grandpa was always inclined to put anything on the hook, and then you had to spit on it. If you never heard this, he read some fishing magazine. If you spit on it, that saliva is supposed to attract fish too. So for years we were spitting on our bait and fish hooks. It was pretty fun.
And how did you catch a lot?
You know, it was always off and on, but I remember, you know, as time went on, we caught less. I remember as I was older, and even if I went out with friends or family, we would catch less. But I remember early on, we would always catch, you know, a couple of dozen catfish or bluegill, take it home and fry them up. So
You probably just caught them all, Brad. You know.
That's what it was. Yeah.
All right. So share with us something about you that makes you unique.
Mm-hmm. You know, for that, here's what comes to mind. Years ago, I got introduced to a teaching philosophy called Real Love with author Greg Bear. And he was a heart surgeon and was going to commit suicide and had an internal shift. And he created this concept called Real Love. So I encourage anybody to go to the website, reallove.com, to look at it. But my family and friends and we all got introduced to it years ago. And what I'm referring to that is that combined with all of my religious science teaching as a practitioner really helped me be an excellent listener. And so in counseling or groups or even managing meetings, having very clear skills to help me be really present to what's being said and then ask genuine questions of people in front of me. I love doing that, and I'm really good at it. And I just love that kind of experience when I get to be with an individual or with a group, to see how well I can listen and then move the conversation from that level of sharing.
And that is a skill, Brad. That is.
Oh my gosh.
It's such an important.
Especially when you're leading a meeting, right? When you're leading a meeting, you have a decision to make. I remember one time, since I guess it's my mic now, but I'd love to hear about you, but maybe that's another Zoom.
A whole other.
You know, I remember I was on the board of trustees and I was the president, and we needed to make a decision, and we've been going back and forth for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months of this big decision. The decision was, should we sell the property and go somewhere else? Because we didn't have a minister, we had some debt, you know, that kind of logistic that a business would need to decide of, well, should we take our equity and start again somewhere else, blah, blah. And it kept going around. I remember I learned so much from this experience. I remember about a third of the people on the board of trustees, of about 11 of us or so, kept saying, you know, we should sell. And every time we got together, which was like weekly or more, it would come up conversation. And I remember one time I said, here's what we're going to do this meeting. We're all going to share what we feel we need to do about this. First, we prayed, of course, meditated. Then we all share what we want to do about it and get it all out of our system. Then we took a break. We came back and prayed some more. And I said, now we're going to do it again. And some people didn't want to. I said, no, we're going to do it again. And everybody I'd like to take a time to share what's in with them, whether we should do this or not. And and I got chills thinking about this because it was so amazing to watch, right? When you see what looks like an apparent dissension, and then people just share what's in them just to get it out of them in a safe and loving space. And by the time we were done with that, we were saying, no, we're staying here. We're not selling the building. Let's move on. And it never was brought up again
And it
after
worked
a
out.
few dozen times of being brought up. So observing that was just a really rich experience for me as a person, as well as a leader in a church.
So Brad, then how did you get into science? And so what was your background, religious or not,
Sure.
before? I always love to hear that story, how people
I do too.
found our teaching.
I do too. Yeah. Mine was, the religion only was, on one side of the family was Catholic, my dad's parents. And so when we were at their home and it was a Saturday night for mass or a holiday, we went to mass. And that was it. It's funny, just those times over the years, how I could still follow along with a liturgy, in a Catholic service and copy them or sing along or speak along with them. And that was it. It was just holidays. And I remember, I hadn't thought of this for years. I did remember when I was a freshman in high school, there was a new church down the street, just a general Christian church. And I remember went there I don't think it was the choir. Maybe it was the choir and the youth group. And I went there and I went away for a retreat one time. And I was kind of a prude for my first few years of high school. And I don't know if I was cool, but I know I was a prude. And I remember I went to this retreat and the number of teenagers that were smoking pot or making out at this Catholic teenage retreat, I was like, oh, that's so inappropriate. And so I never went back. Because that was my only experience growing up. But how I got into religious science was somewhere in my mid-20s or so. Some guy off the street, actually at the post office, approached me and he had a multi-level marketing business. And it got me into a multi-level marketing business. This one happened to be Amway. And, in that, for you to be self-employed and do that kind of motivation, you've got to improve yourself. So I got introduced to positive motivational books, like The Magic of Thinking Big and How to Win Friends and Influence People, all the classics, Norman Vincent Peale. And from that, somehow I sponsored my aunt, who then read enough books, how I paraphrase it, to leave the town that her ex-husband was in, come down here to the desert with her daughters. And she was right down the street from the church. So I came down to visit her at Christmas, and literally down the street, like a block and a half down Candlewood, that side street. And she said, let's come to Christmas Eve service. And I was not inclined at all, because I was in Amway. And I remember, when you have a 3-day weekend at Amway, sometimes they have a Christian service on Sunday mornings, and it's kind of pushy, etc. But I went with her because I loved her. And I remember my memory of it was, I don't know even who was talking, Dr. Tom, I don't really know, don't care. But I remember I didn't get the God stuff. I didn't understand that, but I loved the hugging and the singing. And that got me hooked. And then I came a few days later for the World Peace Meditation we used to do. A lot of our communities used to do on December 31st at 4 a.m. And then a few months later, I'm looking in the yellow pages, trying to find a church near me. And I found one about 40 minutes away. And then I actually found a friend of mine that I worked with was sick. And her and I don't think we had ever done anything personal. She was probably about 20 years older than I was. So like a mentor friend. And we had never done anything personal, but she was sick and I went to her home. And on her coffee table was a Science Mind textbook. And she told me that she had a practitioner on retainer. I didn't know what that was. So she introduced me to the church that was in my hometown, got involved, and then had been there ever since. That was like 87. And then 3 or 4 years later, I got hired as a business manager of that church and just kept on going. So.
Wow. So our center here in Palm Desert was then the first Science of Mind center that you went.
Literally.
And who would have thought then that you would be a minister there, right?
Yeah, for sure. As well as if I needed to move to take care of my parents, which happened 3 years ago, how thankful I am. They're just down in the street in Indio. They could have been anywhere in the country, much less the world, right? But they were here. thank goodness. So I could go right into a community that I already loved and had known for years and visited whenever I was in town, and just feel so welcome and so at home. It was just awesome. I'm still very thankful for that.
Well, there are no accidents in the universe, right?
Yeah,
No,
right.
that's one of my favorite quotes. So, Brad, what's one of your favorite Science of Mind quotes?
Principle is not bound by precedent. It sounds really simple, and but it's everything. In the moment I'm feeling an issue, anything that came before this can be completely irrelevant. And I can begin now, I can begin anew. So I even said more words in the front than the quote was, right? Just in my embodying the quote even deeper is what's really been powerful and helpful for me.
So, so then how would you say Science of Mind has impacted you? I mean, you got it interested, you were drawn to it, but how do you feel it's impacted your life?
I think it's made me more aware and hyper aware of how everything in my life I've created, period. Now, if I see, a meteor hit a house across the street, I'm not going to say I created that, but I will say my response to it is part of what I attracted to myself. So if I'm looking at anything over here, whether it's someone with a mask or someone without a mask, and I move into a state of fear, or move into a state of angry, or a state of compassion, that all starts with me. And so knowing that anything in my life starts with me has been a big freeing experience for me. Like being free to know that before I even met up with my wife, that ended up I married and we had a child together. I remember saying, when I have kids, we're either going to be best friends or they're going to sue me for therapy money, or somewhere in between. Right. So if you can say, what, who knows what's going to happen, but from just where I am and where I exist, if I can think and be and know the truth as often as possible, it'll be a benefit to everybody outside of me. So
I used to say that too about my children. I used to say, oh my gosh, I wonder how many hours of therapy they're going to have because I was their mom. Luckily,
that's
not
great.
too much.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Luckily, not too much.
Well, and so you have a son. How old is your son?
He's 21 and a half.
Oh, Brad.
That's last Christmas.
Oh, what a happy
And
looking
this is
guy.
yeah, he's awesome. Then this is that. Oh, it is does kind of pretty clear. So he picked me up before convention in February in Denver.
Oh,
and and he's taking me to my Airbnb, and it was probably about 11:30 at night, and he had just turned 21 like 6 days before, and his mom, of course, who lives in town, took him out, and so we went out for a drink, because that was us at a bar, and he's happy face, and so. But I'll brag about him a second because it's my microphone.
absolutely.
He's on his third campaign where he's the campaign manager, and for his second position in a state office. One was a local, and then he was at a state position for legislature. And then they were getting along great, but he saw another opportunity, and she goes, "You got to take that opportunity." I guess that's what she said. So they wonderfully parted ways, because she loved my son being her campaign manager. And now he's working for another gentleman who, when I looked him up, it's like, what an awesome person. We need that kind of person, in politics. So my son's helping him and doing the work. And so the bragging point is, this is from a sweet, quiet boy who the last 2 years of high school, he did his high school in his basement room at his mom's house in Denver, and just didn't get out much, didn't do it, did college for a year. And somewhere then he volunteered to go knock on doors for the party he's affiliated with. And it's like, you're going to knock on doors with strangers and ask them for the vote and tell them about your candidate? And he did it. That was it. Everybody saw him, fell in love with him. His circle of friends is the most dynamic circle of friends I've ever seen. And it's just awesome. But his mom and I are so excited for him.
And he's 21?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive, Brad.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Oh my God. Oh, so
yeah.
that's probably the only thing you really miss, huh? Being here.
I miss the trees. I miss the mountains. I
Oh no,
miss the
Brad, we have
snow.
mountains here. We've got snow here.
Yeah, yeah. Mountains with trees and snow. That's the. I love the cold so much. I have some photos of me sitting in my backyard in Denver in a little quaint little Victorian home, wonderful redwood fence around, a lot of grass, and it's snow on the ground. And I have a picture of me in shorts with my coffee cup on the table in front of me, the snow there, and my dog running around. That's what.
Well, Brad,
You know what? Since
we're the complete opposite because I love the heat. I mean, well, not quite this time of year, but
huh, huh, huh,
I don't miss snow at all. Not at
really,
all. You know, if I want snow, I'll
and
drive up to the mountains or take the tram when
smart.
I, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a wonderful trip. I'm
Yeah.
pretty. In a few days, I'm going to take my mom up to Idlewild. We'll have to stay in the car the whole time, just about. But because with my parents' heart issues and my mom's COPD, lung issues,
Oh,
we don't go out at all now. But I do take her out driving, if we can, to see stuff. So we're going to go drive in Idlewild. Someone mentioned it recently on a phone call I was on, and I thought that'd be a cool little mountain thing to do.
right.
I don't
Well,
know
you know
how
what's a
I.
cool mountain thing to do? My
Yeah,
kids
yeah.
were down last week, and my son rented a pontoon boat out at Lake Hemet. And you know it, and it we
Oh, how
cruised
cool.
on the lake was
Uh-huh.
just beautiful and so
How
wonderful.
nice.
And so that's
Do,
something
do
you
you,
might think
yeah,
about.
do you remember the elevation on that?
I don't know. But
Yeah,
I'm
those
sure.
of us who
Yeah,
those
but
that don't
it
have an
can't
issue
be
don't
any
think
more
about it.
than Idlewild. I would think it's like the same as
Yeah,
because it's
that's
down
the
in the
last thing I need
valley. It's
to.
in a valley, Garner
Cool.
Valley.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the last thing I'll check out before we take our drive. She just couldn't
Yeah,
handle
do
the
that.
elevation.
It
So
was
yeah.
just beautiful. And it was
Oh, thanks for that.
well, and if you have your fishing poles, you could take some fishing poles and fish.
Yeah,
You
that'd be
can
great.
cut
That'd be
it
great.
around, but
That'd be
oh,
great.
well,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Well, that's well,
yeah,
enough
yeah.
about me. All right.
No, no, no.
So have you had any like aha moments that you like, oh, or have all these been aha moments for you?
So many of them have been aha. Uh, and so I was thinking about that question. There's so many things that when you become a practicing religious scientist and a self-conscious and self-aware practicing religious scientist, you get ahas all the time. And so it almost gets to the point where you do a prayer and you don't you aren't consciously aware when the prayer manifests itself, but days or a week later you realize, oh, that's already a done deal. That's been a done deal for a week. That kind of thing that happens a lot. But there were still defining moments that kind of were cool ahas where, prayer had to be done, da da da, and it gets manifested, period. So I'll
Right.
share a funny one because it's church related. So we were at somebody's home and we were doing one of the murder mystery parties. And I don't know if I knew I was the victim yet, but either way, every once in a while, you got to announce your character part, right? You kind of got to holler it out. So everybody hears that announcement by, Joe the Butcher or whatever. And then you go off to the party and you're socializing, hanging out, you're asking each other questions. And I wish there was a video of this. And everybody who saw it just got scared shitless. So I need to make an announcement. So I grab a chair, stand up on a chair, the fan on the patio hits my head. I fall over and I hit a swinging, yeah, you're already frowning because of how scary it sounds. I hit a swinging love seat that's hanging from the rafters. And I guess it swings up, swings back and hits me. And I'm on the ground and people start huddling around me and say, are you okay? Okay. And I'm thankful my wife was there. And I said, tell everybody I need a couple of minutes. And I went over to the side of the house where there's a bunch of junk and spiders and stuff. And I just went there and prayed. And I'm sure they didn't like it because they wanted to take care of me. And I just prayed right then. That was it. I had a little scab. Somehow it already scabbed over the next morning in junior church. A little one like on my head, no pain, no issue. And everybody was asking, are you okay? We saw you last night. Because it looked, big guy like me. I stand up, get hit by a fan, blah, blah, blah. But the funniest part of that, what was funny at the time, was then I got this little slip of paper from the host that I was supposed to be the victim. Now, this is after I fell, right? So a number of minutes go by and everybody saw that I fell and they're talking about it and we're going back to the game. And I fall and I'm supposed to fall in the pool.
Oh.
So now they're thinking, is this a result of him just, because they don't know I'm the victim, right? Is this a result of him just hitting his head and he fell in the pool now? So we have to handle that quick and then we get me out of the pool. And so it was a very fun experience. So there's a few buddies that we keep talking about that over the years.
Well, so Brad, as a victim, do you think maybe they planned for that to come? Maybe that was part of your role, Brad.
Yeah, really. You never know. You never know.
So give us like 5 things that you want to share that you'd love for people to know about you, and just things that you'd like.
Well, I'm very thankful for being a dad, and I shared about my son already. And see me about switching my screen here. I got to be a stay-at-home parent the first few years of my son's life, and I was very thankful for that. I was a mortgage broker doing house lending, and my former wife, was a minister at the time, very successful in a large church, and we both wanted her to continue her work, and we were okay with me letting go of mine, and so that was it. So a few months before he was born, I let that go, and just did that for years, and then only got in maybe when he was 3 or 4, got into part-time work and started maybe 1 day a week and went to like 4 days a week and kept doing that. And then as a practitioner,
so were
I'd be
you
teaching class.
active in your ex-wife's church then during that time?
Oh, extremely active. Extremely active. Yeah.
Say, I would think you'd have to be.
Well, no, that's a funny story. You brought it up, so I'll refer to that.
Okay.
Well, I was already active in the San Jose church for 10 years before that. And when her and I met, she was the assistant minister at a Southern California church, and I was the business manager at the San Jose church. So we were very involved in church, working and volunteering already intensely. When I got to that church, I thought, I'm here now. I'm going to look to see what kind of new career I want to do. I'm going to be very, funny phrase, religious, about what do I really want to volunteer in. Because even though I only had 10 years, 10 years volunteering, being at a church, I still volunteered in every aspect or managed every aspect just about. And so I thought, what do I really, really, really want to do? And just when you said, well, I guess you'd have to be involved if your spouse is the minister. I remember something happened on the patio after services, and a couple of people were joking because the previous minister's husband, it was a woman who was a minister and her husband was there, had done all sorts of stuff, moving tables and moving chairs. And so the running joke for a number of months was, oh no, that could be Brad's job. I said, no, it's not. Someone else can move that table and someone else can haul that box or something else. So it was just a running joke for about a year of, Brad's a different kind of volunteer. He's going to pick what he really needs to do himself, not just everything.
Right. So then did you guys, then I assume you brought your son up in this teaching then?
Well, as best we could.
Yes, so, I understand that. I have this cute too, I know.
I have this cute picture of excuse me, this wonderful Sunday school teacher managing the little kids. She had about a dozen every Sunday. A couple assistants, and there's a sweet picture of my son playing with something underneath the table next to her chair. And all the other kids are in the background and she's got one on his lap. And that's how he would experience it. He was, my wife being a minister needs to be an extrovert, and I'm like who I am. And we had this son that was reserved and had no problem looking around. 6 or 7 months after he was born, our dearest friends, Reverend James Peake, who wasn't a minister at the time, and his wife, Michelle, had their son. And our son, we have video of our son being in the birth room at like 7 months, just looking around, watching things.
Wow.
So, but back to him being in school, he just sometimes didn't want to go, of course. being such a quiet. He was one of those healthy introverts. It was just like, I'm going to observe and not do anything else. When I was a couple of different times, I was the junior church director. So whether I'm managing the childcare or the older kids, we didn't have any kids that went past junior high. I would often, at least half the time, be a teacher for the elementary school kids. And so my son was in there with some of his friends. And so he'd participate that way. And then, once that was over, maybe like he was third grade or fourth, he would just go to church with us because we weren't going to let him be at home by himself. And he would just hang out in his mom's office and do stuff and draw and color, that kind of thing. So he got it by osmosis.
I was just going to say that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he still thinks we're, cuckoos and woo-woos. He's never said that. We were at one sanctuary after hours because, the minister's always going to go do something after hours. And we were with her and we were doing something at sanctuary. And we talk about this so many times, my former wife and I. He gets up on the stage and he's maybe 5 or something, maybe six years old. He says, I'm going to be like mom. And he stands up there and he goes, blah, 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 blah. And we just thought that was the funniest thing, that's his interpretation of a minister.
Right. That's what he hears, right? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that feel.
Since I've talked about him a lot, I'll show a picture of both of them. It's my former wife, Michelle Madrano, and Jesse. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. And I love the fact too that you and Michelle are still good friends and parents.
Yeah.
That's how I was with my husband when we split up. And
very cool.
And you know what? It's so important for the children, isn't it? That and if I would get irritated, I'd always remember, you know what? That's their father. And they need to love them, and I want them to love them and have a great relationship with them. So
positively.
Right. So relationships don't work out, but but for your child, you do the things that you want to do to have them have a stable, loving, and know that they're loved by both parents and see the parents still being friends, even though that's so important.
Yeah. And I'll expand on that from my personal experience, because that would be a key priority for us at first, even though we didn't part out of anger. We could feel the energy being done, which is kind of weird. But
I got it. Me too.
Yeah. But also, you started with them, you started dating them, and you wanted to have a committed relationship with them for some reason. That essence that was there isn't totally gone, even if you'd prefer never to have coffee with them again, right? There's that energy there, as well as the energy that bonds you to them through your child.
Right.
And what it made it, it was challenging in a good way, is that we were both very involved in church. I was a lead practitioner every 2, 3, 4 years. And so we would, and I was, so it was about 7 or 8 months after we separated, and we were clear we're going to get a divorce. And she goes, well, you haven't been living with me for a long time, and per our bylaws, you can be in leadership now, so would you please be on the board?
Wow.
So besides being very wonderful and gracious, that she knew who I was and what I could contribute. So that's a really sweet thing, that in the midst of that, she could see that very clear. So I totally give her credit for that. And I appreciated that opportunity. And didn't say but, it moved us into a space where not just were there monthly or more often board meetings, but twice a month at the church we were at in Arizona, the current board and any past board members were involved in a twice a month visioning group that got together and prayed together. So you brought up your stuff in that group to be prayed on, or just to share, to connect. And, we'd share whatever's up, and it's like, oh shit, we went to divorce court last week. And so doing that all very publicly was a powerful thing, because it made me be hyper conscious of who I was inside, right? Because I don't mind being a jerk, and I'm clear of the times I've been a jerk, but that's not my preference. I want to be kind and loving in everything I do and say and think. So even if I get in an argument with you, if I had to share it with someone else, I'd still want to share from a place of full responsibility. And here's what I'm feeling. And hopefully it's a safe place for me to move through that so I could go back into conversation with you to continue the evolvement and the healing of that. So that's a key point of what, excuse me, religious science has brought to me. That self-observation, that if everything in my life I create, well, I haven't talked about that story for a long time. How can I just, constantly come from that place of divine love, even in the midst of whatever the effect is.
Right. Well, you know what, Brad, what I was thinking about when I was listening to you talk was maybe we need somebody like you in the Senate and Congress to instill that coming together and loving and, and feeling that they can speak honestly and freely and come from that place of love. That's what we need, right? In the world.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah.
That's one of those side visions that I have. Got to be great to people that need to do stuff and that are having difficulty get along. Can you give them me in a conference room for a couple hours with a locked door, or maybe at least commit them.
That might be a ministry for you, Brad, to do that, where you have groups that are in conflict, like, okay, you're being heard, but you're being heard in a loving way, and you're listening in a loving way, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Powerful. How much we can heal, if we're people seeing heard. Right? We see people now voice their comments and opinions online or on the news or somewhere, and it's just like, you need to take a breath. I hope you find one person in your whole life that you can just breathe with. If it looks like venting, do it in a powerful, healthy way that they can guide you through, like practitioners and ministers can do, so you can move to solution or whatever it is you want. Because being angry is never going to get you what you want. No. I get it may be part of the path, but it's never going to get you what you want.
Well, Brad, I think you would be at the center. A really good thing would be for couples to come to you that are having some challenges in their relationship. And, because you're right. There's nothing wrong about leaving somebody, but if you can leave in love and respect and honor, it's good for both of you, and for anybody else involved, right?
Yeah. Think of all the times I haven't been employed very much, thank goodness. I've been self-employed most of the time, but when you've had to leave any kind of relationship in work, right? Remember when you leave it out of anger and then it shows up instantly in your next experience? Oh my God. I did that for a couple of years. I was in positions and the manager I had, they were identical except for their gender and their age and everything else. But their expression was like, I said, oh, there's something in me I need to really clean up so I don't keep having that.
I remember being in a deposition because I'm a court reporter. And I knew every time I was going to take this deposition with this attorney that this was going to be a battle. And he turned to me on a break, and it had been it was just awful. And I'm reporting, I'm going, oh God, just have this over. And he turned to me, he goes, Laura, why is it that every attorney I deal with is a jerk? And I looked at him and I said, what's the common denominator?
That's great.
Just kind of.
That's great.
But it's true. Great. It's true, right? And I wasn't even in religious science then.
Wow, that's great.
I already knew that was the common denominator. So you knew. It just goes to show you. So what are some of your, it sounds like you've had a lot of fun times working in church and being. Now, did you ever work at Mile High because you were in Colorado for the?
Yeah, because sorry, I've got gardeners next door. If you don't, maybe you don't hear them. Now you do. I did work in the facilities department, which of all places, it was like a one night a week evening things. They knew I came to town, and when I came to town, I had a property management business in Arizona that was kind of phasing out. I was transitioning it, and it was kind of falling apart because I was not in a good space. And I ended up almost giving it to the business partner I had at the time. So I was looking for work, and sweet Michelle, my former wife at the church, said, "Hey, anybody here? Brad's looking for work, you know?" And so the facilities manager said, "Well, you come here. We got stuff to do." And I already, had decades at the time of how to set up for a classroom and what it needs to be done, and is the microphone where it needs to be, and do you have all the markers for the board, and blah blah. And so I just joined in that. It was a very fun team because it was a lot of work, a lot of physical work, in a huge facility that has thousands on a Sunday. Well, each class could be 50 to 350 people, right? And so there's a lot of movement and setup for any kind of event. So I got to get a lot of great exercise, and everybody was there was probably 20 years younger than me. And that was just really fun to hang out with these 20-year-olds, taking breaks and chatting and BSing and doing the work and schlepping stuff. And so I was very thankful for that opportunity. It created some extra income at the time I needed it and wanted it. So I did that for maybe about a year and a half. That was kind of fun. But I was a practitioner there for a year. And then in their group, and then there was a church closer to my home, and it was right in downtown Denver. So I went to that church and became a practitioner there. Loved the minister there. Ended up being their sound person for about the last 4 months of the music. I'd get there very first early in the morning and set up the sound and the stage and get their soundboard going and that kind of stuff. So that was a cool thing.
Well, so Brad, you wound up in the desert because of your parents. So you've been their caregiver now for almost 3 years. What have you learned by that? I know it's got to be rough.
There's times like, oh my God. And there's times like, I'll share an inspiration I got. One of my mentors right now and my prayer partner is Dr. Lloyd Tupper.
Wow.
And he and I knew each other at San Jose Church, and I'll maybe share that, how we got to know each other. And our birthdays are both in June. So if we don't talk for a year or two, we usually try and connect in June just for that. And in June, a little over a year ago, I'd already been with my parents like a year and a half or more. And I was really frustrated because we were completing the first year of ministerial school. And my vision had been to be the senior minister at a thriving center for spiritual living. For years, my vision had been the senior minister at a thriving center for spiritual living. Didn't know where that was, didn't really care. I just knew all that entailed because I was married to one and partnered with one and been assistant to one and managed a building for one. So I knew what that was. And that felt like a great expression fit for me. And I'm taking care of my parents. Wow. And so my wonderful prayer partner, Lloyd, we're doing it, and he's hearing my frustration. And early on in our connection, he said, what if, I don't know if he said you should, or he said, what if, but whatever it was, he said, what if right now, see how I talk slower when I really want to get what I'm saying. So whenever you're with me, folks, if I'm talking slower, I'm not talking for you, I'm talking for me. He said, what if at the time for right now, you know that you have ministry, and this is a key, very important ministry in your life, to be with your parents. And how deep can you feel and understand and express the compassion of the infinite here?
Wow.
And so that was a huge shift for me. And when I think about that or have an issue, I come back to that. It's kind of like I never want to live on the come, but we're always trying to think of what can I do. So it helped me be very present with my ministerial education and being present with my life. It's like, here's what I am. And I'll attract whatever opportunities I can in little Indio or Palm Desert Church. And then if something else shows up, then we'll look at that when it shows up. Or when they pass, I'll look at where my life is and what shows up then. But knowing that if I come from within first and I create the experience of service and ministry and love and light even more clearly and definitively within me, the perfect ministry will just show up in front of me. Oh, so that's helped me be my work here with Mom.
Wow. That is so beautiful, Brad. That because
Yeah.
I, yeah, that is an
And
amazing, you know,
thank you. Thank
and
you.
you're right. It is going to help your ministry. It can't do anything but to give you the
Yes,
compassion and
exactly.
understanding what people are
Exactly.
dealing with and be there
Yes.
for them and give them an example of how to look at it and how to be with it.
Yes.
That is huge. So, how did you and Lloyd get to be prayer partners? How did that come
You
about?
know, yeah, I was the
It's amazing. Tell
I was
people
on the
his
board of
background and a little bit. He
so
is
so Lloyd Tupper is been a minister in our movement for about 45 years. Um, he got involved in religious science. I think it was like a year or two. I saw a certificate of his beginning science in my one class. It was like a year or two after Ernest passed. But he was friends with Bitzer and Barker, um,
oh wow.
et cetera, and had four ministries in California. And his last pulpit ministry was the San Jose Church. And I was on the board of trustees and the selection committee at the time he candidated there. And he had gone to ministerial school with like the minister, two ministers before him there. And he'd been out of the country doing some corporate work in Japan with a company he owned. And he was ready to get back into ministry full time. And he candidated. And I got to know him during the process because I was the representative that negotiated his letter of call, which is the minister's employment contract. And in that process of doing it, and I was volunteering, I think I was, this is how old I am, folks. I was using a DOS computer. And for us to do the church newsletter, I had to use a light board and then print my documents, lay them out with pictures on a light board so I could see they're all lined up, and then tape it all together, take it down to some mimeograph. Yeah, okay. So that was how we did newsletters. But in the process of working for him, and he had signed like a letter of call or kind of started, but wasn't officially going to be there for a number of months. And he heard I was looking for work. I said, I've got to leave my job. I was managing a real estate office. And I said, I'm ready to leave that. And he said, well, we need an office manager. We don't have one. We had an accountant, we had facilities, we had a bookstore manager, and accountant, and someone did all the paperwork, and a newsletter and stuff. And so he hired me as the office manager a month or two before he started. That was it. And so that was just a rich time for me to work with him. I did some more renovation on the church with his design guidance. And so we were close then. And then I left, and that sweet man likes to say I abandoned him. He just jokes about that. And he was best man in my wedding, along with my kid brother that I had through Big Brothers Big Sisters, who also was a member of the church. And so we just kept in touch over the years, off and on. But then when he heard I was in ministerial school, we touched base on our birthday month. He said, I just like to work with you and gift you. So we have 1 month, one call a week. Twice a week, I get this awesome consciousness, man.
Wow.
Once a week, we do prayer. And then another week, we do kind of work together on his ministry stuff.
So Brad, he was with United, right?
Yes.
Because I remember when we had the Asilomar where we had like the joint one when we were going through our integration.
Yes.
That was the only time I ever heard him speak.
Oh,
but
okay.
I was blown away. I just thought, oh, what an amazing man. And I think I was doing the opening prayer at that session, and he was in
cool.
the back, and he was so
Wow.
gracious and just so you could just feel that love and that consciousness about him, right? It's palpable.
Yes, those are great descriptions of his presence in the hallway and on stage. The intense love and compassion and the level of consciousness. You can, from Trower to Ernest Holmes, he can just quote it right and left, and he utilizes it right and left, and really implements it. And it's just been really, what I've been blessed. Besides, I have an awesome ministerial school, and I love the work we did with James Mellon over the years, and got introduced to new stuff to be a better ecclesiastical lover and leader. My one-on-one time with Lloyd in the last year plus, I would say something, particularly like a prayer treatment, and he still does this. He did it at first, and it drove me crazy. But now he doesn't, like, I just driven. So I think I'm pretty good at prayer.
You
And I
are
think
awesome.
I'm rich and deep, and I have been for a long time. I'm getting better. Just the other day, we do a prayer and we think we're going to end the call. And he just takes it and drills it in of what I said from not just a semantics level, but to a consciousness level. And
Oh,
so, to
how
have that kind of
blessed you are.
opportunity
How
is
blessed.
like,
Truly.
whew, wow, wow. So
So Brad,
I'm very thankful.
I mean, you've got all this great training and background. What are you envisioning doing at our center in Palm Desert when
Sure.
we, what do you kind of see? Why don't you share with people?
Well, I've got a couple points that I proposed and got accepted on. So I'll share that, but I did want to share, I'm going to share it publicly.
Go
I
ahead.
don't know why I'm going to share it publicly, but for you and Dr. Joe and Reverend Charles, I love the business and beingness of church so much and have done everything, any aspect you could think of, events, services, youth, facilities, administration, blah, blah. If you said, Brad, we want some experience and ecclesiastical love here to embellish it, I would just say yes, just so you know. So if that comes up in a board meeting,
Cool.
you know what? Can we just see if Brad can just grab this and take it for 6 months to love it and lead it? I really love that. Whether it's getting the paperwork of that particular aspect of our business more concise, or just can we triple the number of volunteers that are participating in it, that kind of thing. But the key points that I shared was Reverend William and I are going to be starting a men's group. We're just still looking at a couple of times a month, what dates we can do. And I'm putting together a proposal to have a caregivers connection small group. So twice a month for anybody who's currently a caregiver or even has been and they still are working through stuff, so they can just have a safe, loving space where we'd open with a prayer, we'd have some structured sharing, we'd close with a prayer. And for that group, I'd be available for, just gratis support between our times that get together. So those are two key things that I'm going to step up and play in.
And I think they're beautiful. The men's group that I'm excited about that. I really, when I saw your proposal about the caregivers, I thought, how perfect. And now that I know all your little qualities, Reverend Brad, I'm going to be tapping into you with some help with our administrative stuff. So that's so great. So,
and you've known me long enough that I don't need to take charge. That's kind of a waste of time. But often in one particular aspect, there's someone who needs to just lead. So if it's 4 people, if we don't want things I love and I'm passionate about, I can tell the way I'm feeling right now as I'm watching our time. Even if there's 4 or 5 people in front of me, they're trying to get something done, I can just love and listen to them so intensely, they just can thrive. And it's a skill. I don't know if I was born with that at all, but I can work on that. But anyway, Jeff is our facilitator. Jeff from Swing Point Media has given us some comments. Meditation, you're welcome for the meditation. And great for something for caregivers. Awesome. I was shocked when I came to town and said I'm a caregiver for my parent. The number of people that were or currently caregivers just in our community or around town, because it was never brought up. I'm not 60 yet, but it just wasn't brought up in my circle of friends. But there's a lot of us out there doing it.
Yes, there are. And I think, is that our gong to leave?
Sorry.
No.
I'm in my office.
We do need to probably wrap it up. But Brad, this is wonderful. So
I'm in my office garage. Yeah, perfect timing. I'm in my office garage and I forgot to unplug my mom's doorbell. So she'll ring it if I'm out sometimes or in the house. We just have a doorbell in the background if she needs to use the restroom or get it from her rest or whatever. So
right.
I'm totally red now.
Okay. Yes, you are. So remember, everybody, if you want to get in touch, I think for any kind of counseling or sharing about caregiver or relationships, Brad, you are a walking, living, breathing example. or even of our teaching. And so again, everybody, if you want to get a hold of them, please contact the center and we will put you in contact with Reverend Brad. And I'm so excited that you're here at the center and it's been wonderful.
Yes.
You know what, Reverend Bradley, you are so amazing. Would you do a closing prayer for us?
That would be great.
Thank you.
I've really loved and appreciated our time and spending more time, Dr. Laura. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun to get to know you like this.
Thanks. Thanks. So we just give thanks and bless this time. Whether it's inspired us individually or collectively, the energy, the love, the heart, the love of consciousness and depth of this teaching, of this ministry, of our community, of the presence of God that has expressed itself here in this time, I give grateful, grateful thanks. For every person who has listened to it, who shares it, and becomes re-inspired with the infinite presence that is within them, I give grateful thanks, for the law has taken this word right now and made it more profoundly so than ever before. In the truth of this word, for the manifestation of this word, and this time together, I give grateful, grateful, grateful thanks. Letting the infinite presence and the power and love and peace and connection that is God be so clearly, definitively expressed here and now. We just let this be. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Thank you, Reverend Brad. It's so
Thank
wonderful
you, dear lady.
to get
Great
to
seeing you.
get to see you. And I want to remind everybody that tomorrow Jeff On's going to be on with the book study. And so at 10 o'clock, and then on Wednesday, we have our Sensational Six, which Reverend Brad is part of. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be interviewing our new minister, Reverend Lori Savage. And then Friday, I'm going to tell you how I got into this teaching and what my background and is. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you all for joining us and getting to know one of our newest ministers. And it's great to be back. Thank you, everyone. And have a great day. Bye-bye, Brad. Take care of your mom now.